Number 7. Listerine. Imagine, if you will, that it is the late 1800s. You are a distinguished gentleman with a mustache that requires its own zip code, and you have just invented a powerful surgical antiseptic. You're feeling pretty good about yourself. You've created a liquid that kills germs so effectively it can be used to scrub floors, treat gonorrhea, and clean infected wounds on the battlefield. But there's a problem. Nobody is buying it. Your floor cleaner is too hardcore for floors, and people aren't exactly lining up to douse their private parts in something that feels like liquid lightning. This was the early life of Listerine. It was a massive, sweeping failure of a product because it was a solution in search of a problem that wasn't terrifying enough to justify the sting. Enter the magic of corporate gaslighting. In the 1920s, the makers of Listerine realized that if you can't sell a floor cleaner as a floor cleaner, you should probably try to convince people that their breath smells like a decomposing trash heap. They took an obscure Latin-based medical term, halitosis, and began running ads that framed bad breath as a catastrophic social disease. Before this, having a mouth that smelled like you'd eaten a bowl of garlic-flavored socks was just called living. But suddenly, thanks to Listerine's marketing team, you were a social pariah if your breath wasn't minty fresh. They transformed a failed surgical disinfectant into a daily necessity by weaponizing your own insecurity against you. The psychology here is simple. Humans are more afraid of being excluded from the tribe than they are of drinking floor cleaner. Your brain is hardwired to scan for social threats, and halitosis became a boogeyman that only one product could slay. Today, we swish this stuff around every morning, blissfully unaware that we are essentially rinsing our mouths with 19th century hospital-grade floor scrub. We didn't need Listerine. We were told we were disgusting until we bought it. Basically, your dental hygiene routine is a 100-year-old PR stunt that successfully bullied the entire human race into submission. Number 6. Play-Doh. Some people see a wall covered in coal soot and think, I should probably clean that. In the 1930s, Couture products thought the same thing. They invented a pliable, dough-like substance designed specifically to rub the black residue of coal heating off of wallpaper. It was a genius invention for a world that ran on coal. However, the universe has a funny way of making your brilliant invention obsolete 5 minutes after you patent it. After World War II, people started switching from coal to natural gas, and suddenly, wallpapers stayed clean. The wallpaper cleaner was a dead product walking. It was a failure of such epic proportions that the company was circling the drain, probably wondering if they could sell the putty as a very dense, very depressing bread substitute. Then, fate intervened in the form of a nursery school teacher. She noticed that kids were bored out of their minds and that the wallpaper cleaner was actually quite fun to squish. She suggested the company remove the detergent, add some bright colors, and call it a toy. Suddenly, the failed cleaning supply became Play-Doh. The pivot worked because humans, specifically small, sticky humans, have a biological imperative to manipulate their environment with their hands. Your brain is a sensory-seeking machine, and squishing a salty, non-toxic glob of chemicals provides a level of tactile feedback that your lizard brain finds deeply erotic in a wow, I'm building things kind of way, not a call the police kind of way. We still use Play-Doh today because it's the ultimate dumb smart toy. It failed at its one job cleaning and found success by leaning into the fact that we never really grow out of the desire to make a lumpy purple dinosaur. It's a testament to the fact that if you fail at being useful, you can always try being a distraction for toddlers. Your favorite childhood scent is actually the smell of a failed industrial cleaning solution rebranded for people who haven't mastered potty training yet. Number 5. Bubble wrap. Your brain hates boredom so much that it will find joy in the most mundane, repetitive tasks imaginable, like popping tiny air pockets. But bubble wrap wasn't supposed to be your favorite stress relief fidget toy. In 1957, two inventors tried to create 3D wallpaper. They literally took two plastic shower curtains and put them through a heat sealing machine, trapping air bubbles inside. They thought, yes, this is what people want. They want their living rooms to look like the inside of a padded cell at a very colorful psychiatric ward. Shockingly, the textured wallpaper trend failed to take off. Turns out, people like their walls flat and easy to paint, not lumpy and covered in plastic warts. After the wallpaper idea tanked, they tried to market it as greenhouse insulation. That also failed because, as it turns out, plastic is bad at being a greenhouse. The product was a total loser until IBM released the 1401 computer. These machines were fragile, expensive, and roughly the size of a small car. They needed a way to ship them without them turning into a pile of expensive scrap metal. Suddenly, the failed wallpaper found its calling as the ultimate protector of electronics. It wasn't about the aesthetics, it was about the air. Today, bubble wrap is a multi-billion-dollar industry, but we don't just use it for shipping. We use it because popping those bubbles triggers a hit of dopamine in the brain that is normally reserved for finding a $20 bill in an old coat pocket. It's a sensory experience that satisfies our prehistoric urge to hunt and gather small, crunching things. We took a failed interior design nightmare and turned it into the world's most ubiquitous packaging material and a universal symbol for, I'm having a mild nervous breakdown and need to pop something. It's basically a failure that became a global coping mechanism. Number 4. Viagra. Imagine standing in a lab, looking at a failed heart medication and realizing you've accidentally stumbled upon the greatest party trick in medical history. In the early 90s, Pfizer was testing a drug called sildenafil. The goal was simple: dilate the blood vessels in the heart to treat angina, a fancy word for your chest hurts because your heart is struggling. The clinical trials were a disaster. The drug was terrible at treating heart pain. It was a failure. The researchers were ready to pack it up and go home, but then they noticed something strange during the patient interviews. The male participants didn't want to give the leftover pills back. When asked why, they didn't talk about their hearts. They talked about other things. Specifically, the drug was very good at dilating blood vessels, just not the ones the scientists were aiming for. The side effect was so powerful that it completely eclipsed the original purpose of the drug. Pfizer had a choice: admit the heart med failed or lean into the most awkward marketing campaign in human history. They chose the latter, and Viagra was born. This is a classic case of biology doing what it wants regardless of what the white-coated nerds in the lab intended. Your circulatory system doesn't care about your intended use cases. It just reacts to chemical signals. Viagra failed as a cardiovascular miracle and succeeded as a cultural phenomenon because it addressed a biological failure that men were too embarrassed to talk about. We still use it today because, as it turns out, people care significantly more about their performance in the bedroom than they do about the theoretical dilation of their coronary arteries. It's the ultimate task failed successfully. Number 3. Post-it notes. You've probably heard of 3M. They are a company that prides itself on making things stick to other things. In 1968, a scientist named Spencer Silver was trying to develop a super strong adhesive for the aerospace industry. He wanted a glue so powerful you could practically stick a plane to the sky. Instead, he created a low-tack adhesive that was basically the participation trophy of glues. It was weak, it was pressure sensitive, it could be peeled off easily. By every metric of the glue industry, it was a pathetic, whimpering failure. For years, Silver wandered around 3M like a sad puppy, showing people his unglue that didn't actually stick. Everyone ignored him because, why would you want glue that doesn't hold? It wasn't until a colleague, Art Fry, got frustrated that his bookmarks kept falling out of his hymnal during choir practice that the light bulb finally flickered on. He realized that the failure of the glue was actually its greatest strength. It was temporary. It was the "it's not you, it's me" of the chemical world. The post-it note succeeded because it filled a psychological gap we didn't know we had. Our brains are constantly leaking information, and we need a way to leave breadcrumbs for our future selves without permanently defacing our property. The yellow color was actually another accident. They used it because the lab next door happened to have some yellow scrap paper. We still use post-it notes because our short-term memory is about as reliable as a chocolate teapot, and we need failed glue to keep our lives from falling apart. Your entire office is currently being held together by a chemical mistake that wasn't strong enough to do its real job. Number 2. The Segway. In 2001, the Segway was hyped as the most important invention since the internet. Steve Jobs said it would change how cities are built. Jeff Bezos thought it was revolutionary. It was codenamed Ginger, and the world expected a teleportation device, or at least a jetpack. Instead, we got a dorky, self-balancing scooter that made you look like a mall cop from a dystopian future where everyone has given up on walking. It was a massive commercial failure. Nobody wanted to pay $5,000 for a machine that made them look like they were being chauffeured by a very slow, very upright lawnmower. But even though it failed to replace the car or the human foot, we still see them everywhere. Why? Because the Segway found its niche in the world of people who have to stand all day but don't want to move their legs. It's the official vehicle of the airport security guard and the "I'm a tourist who is too lazy to see the Louvre on foot" crowd. It failed as a revolution, but it survived as a specialty tool for the terminally upright. The psychology of the Segway is a lesson in the uncanny valley of transportation. It was too fast for the sidewalk and too slow for the road. It occupied a weird middle ground that made our brains uncomfortable. However, the technology behind it, the gyroscopes and self-balancing sensors, didn't die. It just moved into hoverboards and electric unicycles. The Segway itself is a failure we still use because it's just useful enough to keep around for people who have officially surrendered to the gravity of their own laziness. It's essentially a motorized pedestal for your own ego. Number 1. 7-Up. Some people like a crisp lemon-lime soda to wash down their burger. In 1929, however, you weren't just drinking 7-Up for the bubbles, you were drinking it to keep from having a mental breakdown. When it was first launched, its name was Bib Label Lithiated Lemon Lime Soda. Yes, lithiated, as in lithium, the stuff they currently use to treat bipolar disorder and clinical depression. It was marketed as a mood-stabilizing tonic that could cure hangovers and soothe the nerves. It was a medicinal failure because, as it turns out, putting psychoactive drugs in a soft drink is a legal and ethical nightmare. The FDA eventually forced them to take the lithium out in 1948, which effectively killed the product's original purpose. It was no longer a medical treatment, it was just sugar water. It failed as a drug, yet it survived by rebranding itself as the Uncola. They leaned into the idea that it was a refreshing alternative to the dark, heavy, caffeinated sodas of the world. They took a failed psychiatric medication and turned it into the thing you drink when you have a stomachache or when you're at a party and don't want to drink alcohol. We still use 7-Up today because our brains have been conditioned to associate that specific lemon-lime flavor with feeling better, even though the actual medication has been gone for 70 years. It's a placebo effect on a global scale. We are essentially drinking the ghost of a mood stabilizer and calling it a refreshment. It failed to be a medicine, but it succeeded in becoming a permanent resident of our refrigerators. Your favorite mixer is just a lobotomized version of a prohibition-era drug cocktail.